We're going to actually do like deep projections and maybe a deep dive into the crypto market because I think a lot of crypto people have these delusions of grandeur, whether you're in VET, XRP, Cardano, etc., and you think you're going to take over the entire market and your coin's going to have hundreds of trillions of dollars in market cap. No, your coin is not going to actually have that. Not even Bitcoin itself. Let's actually look at some things. Let's start with some things that have people excited. Where VeChain joins the official Carbon Emission Society of the World, or XRP joins the ISDA, which is the Derivatives Association. People make these events out to be big deals, but they're really not. These associations aren't really like you get massive partnerships anytime soon and everyone starts using your product. That's not what these associations are. They're more like kind of like social clubs, and they're more for getting advice on legal matters and things like that. For instance, there's a lot of people that are actually part of the Carbon Emissions Association, and for the ISDA, the derivatives things too. There's over 1,000 members of the ISDA, and if you're wondering that if any of them are blockchain, yes, Algorand actually joined them back in 2019, and Algorand's pretty much dead right now, more or less, after their DeFi actually imploded. So joining these organizations, or being listed as a WEF coin or whatever, isn't that big of a deal. You know why? Because FTX was a WEF company and they kind of died. So these kind of things aren't really things that you should really celebrate too much. Yeah, it's cool and it gets the influencers and the hype artists talking, but it's actually not nearly as big of a deal as people think it is, especially if you join an organization that has already thousands of members. Yeah, sure, you might be able to rub these shoulders, but these are more like social organizations where they give you advice on the industry overall, not really making ginormous partnerships with your coin. So let's actually look a deep dive at the crypto industry. How far or big do I think it can grow? If you look at the stock market, it's worth about $100 billion. Crypto's just over $100 trillion. Sorry, crypto's just $1 trillion over right now. So I think crypto can actually grow 100x and rival the stock market in terms of size. I don't think it'll grow that much bigger than the stock market because there's only a limited amount of assets in the world. And not everything needs to be tokenized, obviously. But I do actually think that crypto can eventually rival the stock market. It will take another, 10, 20 years, maybe, probably more than 10, probably 20 years for it to actually grow and mature into that. And I think it'll always be more of a volatile market. It'll be always more speculative than the stock market. And the regulations won't be able to control it nearly as much as the stock market. And the reason for that is crypto as a whole, I think it was just built to be more volatile. There's supposed to be less barriers of entry, and it's more of an international thing. It's not constrained within borders. So one agency can't really regulate everything. And that's a little bit of what a lot of people like about crypto, that one agency really, really can't regulate everything. That's all good and great. And I have no problem with that. I actually really like it being volatile and stuff like that, but I don't think it's going to grow much past $100 trillion market cap overall. I think it'll grow and scale with the stock market. Like I said, I don't think it's going to replace the traditional economy, but I think it'll be a parallel economy that can compete with the traditional economy. Fiat's not going away, but you're going to have crypto outside of that. So how much will your coin actually be? If you look at the stock market, the biggest companies basically have 1% of the market cap of the entire stock market, maybe even less if you just count the entire world, basically. So out of the biggest one in crypto, obviously right now is Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's dominance will actually dissipate over the next couple of cycles. If you look at the Bitcoin dominance cycle over cycle, the top has dissipated from 90% to 70% last time to 50% this time. I actually don't think it's going above 50% this time. And during the bull run, it'll probably be 25% or less. So eventually it's going to dissipate. It might be a little bit more concentrated than crypto, than the stock market, because I don't think any company's ever held 50% or 70% in the stock market ever. I think the stock market, in terms of money trapped, was always just more decentralized. Because remember, the crypto market began as one coin. It was just Bitcoin after all. The stock market never really began like that. There were many, many companies just at the beginning of the stock market. So, in 10 or 20 years, maybe when it actually reaches $100 trillion, maybe Bitcoin will take up 10 trillion, 15 trillion of it. And then the other coins will fill out the other 85 trillion, which means the market cap of everything besides Bitcoin and Ethereum, of course, is probably going to take up like 70%. So like the biggest companies in there or the biggest cryptos in there will probably be like, 700 billion, maybe $1 trillion. So, that I think is probably like the top potential in the next, 15 years or so for your coin. A market cap of roughly, like 700 billion, maybe $1 trillion. If you look at your total supply and you divide that by your total supply, you can kind of get the sense of like how much value each coin in your crypto is going to be worth. For instance, XRP 100 billion, you get 700 billion, maybe a trillion, $7 to $10. Cardano, 40 billion, maybe like about twice as much as that. And you can just go down by road to see like how much, if you think your crypto is going to be one of the top ones, that's about how much it's going to be worth at an actual level. I think that's a very, very good projection. And it's more of like, it might be more of a safer projection, but I don't think any one crypto is actually going to just dominate the market like that. And Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're always going to be, unless they like die, and I think Bitcoin has a good chance of collapsing in the next 15 years just because of how its halving mechanism works. And Ethereum is going to have its own problems. And if those things die, like obviously the rest of the cryptos will hopefully rise up and take over that market cap. But even if they do, it's probably not going to be like the biggest one out of all of those, probably not going to be over like $1.5 trillion in market cap because there's going to be so many projects and there's going to be dozens of projects that are actually good, just like there's dozens of companies that are actually good here. And, for a lot of the use cases, there's a lot of like non-crypto competition sources as well. You look at remittance, like there's this Sormito thing in Japan they're actually building. And they're building with like Japan, Cambodia, and a lot of the things in Southeast Asia. And they're trying to do a lot of cross border transactions with that kind of like private system over there. HBAR is also doing that, which is obviously a crypto system. Cardano is doing Africa. And there's a lot of other like things in development by Swift and other companies that will actually do like the cross-border transactions market and will compete with XRP and XLM. Same thing with VeChain. In the logistics, there's a lot of like blockchain but not crypto type of projects that might compete with VeChain. And HBAR is kind of in there as well, competing with VeChain, as well as like other projects. So I think the idea that one crypto is going to dominate even one market is kind of silly at this point, especially if it's a really, really big market that has to do with like finances or transfer. That's why I think crypto's chance to shine is in DeFi. But even in DeFi, it's going to be diversified in a lot of ecosystems. And I think a lot of DeFi projects are going to be multi-chain, which means they spread out a lot of chains, which means that spreads the money out in a lot of chains as well. So your chain isn't going to lock up like all the DeFi value. And that's where I come up with like a more diversified, kind of like more diversified profile for all of crypto eventually, especially if Bitcoin and Ethereum fail. Like Bitcoin's going to fail sooner or later because you can't actually just like double the mining cost like every 4 years forever. That's just not sustainable. And it's more than double the mining cost every 4 years because your hash rate's actually going up. The double the mining cost only applies if your hash rate stays the same. But we know that Bitcoin hash rate continuously goes up. So it's going to it needs to like quadruple every 4 years. And that's obviously not sustainable in terms of price for the long-term future. So, after like 3 or 4 halvings, that's going to be a very, very serious problem for Bitcoin. And unless they change the protocol, it's not going to be able to keep up and it will actually fall apart. And hopefully by then the crypto market has actually detached itself from Bitcoin. Otherwise, we're going to have serious, serious problems. And no, I don't think they're going to be looking for Bitcoin 2.0. I think they're just going to be looking for other protocols or like there won't really be a market index coin, which I think is very, very likely at this point. But what I'm saying is like every single crypto industry you're looking at is going to have multiple competitors. And for the stuff that's not like DeFi, it's going to have like a lot of competitors from the traditional industry as well. I know a lot of you aren't paying attention to Swift. A lot of you aren't paying to these blockchain technologies that don't actually include crypto. But they're going to be very, very competitive with the crypto alternatives as well. And a lot of banks and financial institutions are actually adopting these blockchain, not crypto things. And they're doing like, multi-country rails for remittance and money transfer for these things. And I think they'll do it for other industries as well, which is why I think like, DeFi, I think belonging pretty much solely to crypto is going to be such a big market. And that's why you want the projects that actually have a varied ecosystem. Yes, it might have trouble in the United States in terms of regulations, but that's not going to be so much worldwide. I think other countries are going to be very much more lenient, especially places like the Middle East. I think Japan's going to be more lenient. And just about everywhere besides the US is going to be more lenient to those things. So, if your crypto or your blockchain can really, really blossom in the DeFi sector, I definitely think it's going to give it a leg up on the other projects. But I don't think any particular one chain is really going to completely dominate DeFi, especially as more and more of these projects go multi-chain. They might start on Ethereum, but they'll go multi-chain and other people will move off of Ethereum because of the cost of Ethereum, obviously. So the thing is, like, you don't really want to get lost behind and you don't really want to be sagging on the DeFi aspect of it. So, like, my overall analysis, like, if you really believe in your coin, it can be like top 10, top 5. I think you just take basically $1 trillion market cap and divide it by whatever your total supply is. And that can be like the long run maximum value of your coin. Obviously, if you don't make it into the top 5, top 10, it's not really going to be that high. I know a lot of you that will be disappointing, especially because like the total supply of your coin isn't going to be released until like several years in the future. But as we get to that point where the crypto market can actually equalize out the stock market, obviously, you're going to be getting to that maximum kind of like that maximum value or maximum supply level. And I know some of the coins have a burn mechanism, but honestly, I've looked at a lot of the burn mechanisms, and except for the coins that like plan to burn like X percentage per year, most of that burn mechanism isn't really going to be substantial to supply for decades and decades into the future. So I don't think that will actually be that much of a factor. So the thing is, like, I do think there's going to be several cryptos that actually have market caps of like in the upper 100 billions. And maybe one or two, a couple that top $1 trillion, but not that much more than $1 trillion. Unless Bitcoin finds a way to sustain itself forever, then it has actually a chance to maybe be like 10 trillion or something. But I don't think the other cryptos will actually do that because they don't have the first mover advantage and they're competing in a field with everyone else. And the thing is, like, if you're constantly touting like fast transactions and cheap transactions for your crypto, that was a thing back in 2017. That's not really a thing anymore because like most things besides Bitcoin and Ethereum actually have those features. So that's not so much a competitive advantage anymore for your crypto. So that's the long-term deep dive and outlook for the crypto market for me. I do believe crypto overall has a lot of potential, but I also think you have to be realistic about what your coin can actually achieve in terms of like the maximum potential for your coin out there. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.